I got it up on the screen. Made in Toronto. Pre-approved plans for garden suites and laneway suites. However, this is not what you may think. So let me get into some of the details here that is clearly stated on their website. These pre-approved plans may certainly make property development for garden suites and laneway homes faster and less expensive. But what does that mean? Well, if you choose, and I'm reading here, if you choose to use a pre-approved plan, you will still need a building permit, meaning you still need to go through the application process. You would still need someone to take responsibility for those designs. So another thing that I wanted to note here is that these pre-approved drawings have been reviewed by the City of Toronto, right? It makes sense. It's on their website. All the designs of the building itself complies with Ontario Building Code and the city zoning bylaw. There is still zoning and Ontario Building Code requirements that would relate to the placement of the building on the property and which would have to be reviewed as part of any building permit application submission. So even if you choose to submit these drawings as is to the city, they would still require that you have this, of course, reviewed by a designer for building code and zoning bylaw requirement compliance. You can see these beautiful designs here. These are quite nice. In fact, let me just take a closer snippet of this here. So yeah, these are the designs here. So you got a studio garden suite, a 2-bedroom garden suite, a studio laneway suite, and a 2-bedroom laneway suite. So these are really nice designs here. It is emphasized that while the plans being made available have been pre-reviewed, so the language have changed. It's no longer pre-approved, it's pre-reviewed. So it still needs to be post-reviewed, right? It still has to go through the review process such that they will not need to be reviewed again for compliance with zoning and Ontario Building Code in respect to the design of the building. The homeowner or designer who chooses to use the pre-approved plans as part of their building permit application will ultimately be taking responsibility for the design. So the City of Toronto is not functioning as the designer here. You still need to hire a designer to do all the design work necessary, right? So you don't have to submit drawings, which they clearly state as well. You just simply need to let them know what is the pre-approved permit set that you'd like to use, but there is still additional work that needs to be done in order for those to comply with your specific site or the placement of the building, right? So if you modify any part of the building, the plan selected, including HVAC and plumbing, the plans will no longer be considered pre-approved. So, they got some designs here and I kind of pulled one up. These are actually very similar to what we would produce in terms of an architectural set. And I will actually show an example of drawings that we produced that are similar for a garden suite. These are actually pretty well done. Any changes to these drawings will trigger a complete and full building permit submission. So this is something that you need to take into account, and just note that while you may want to utilize these, once you decide to modify any of it, then you will need to actually have it redrawn, as the designer that's taking responsibility for those designs is responsible for everything on those designs. And these drawings are in PDFs. They're not in an editable format, and they will require a full set of drawings to be prepared and stamped. So this is a good start. I think is really headed in the right direction. However, my question would be, what about prefabricated type properties, houses, right? Could these be used for prefabrication? I guess this is a first step in the right direction, and maybe something that they're also considering as well. So again, kudos to Toronto for putting these together. This, I will say, is much more than I've seen from other cities that have already designs, but not pre-approved permit sets. So good for you, Toronto. And looking to see how this plays out and whether this will spur on more of this type of missing middle housing.